The reason for Adolf Hitler's fateful delay of Operation Citadel was a single stubborn obsession: his demand for technological dominance on the battlefield. In early 1943, Germany's industrial plants were finally beginning to roll out their new generation of wonder weapons, specifically the heavy Panther and Tiger tanks, alongside the monstrous Elephant tank destroyers. Hitler was convinced that these heavily armored, hard-hitting steel giants would easily smash through any Soviet defenses. But in April, these vehicles were plagued by severe mechanical teething problems, and production numbers were critically low. The Panther's complex double-turbocharged engine was prone to catching fire, and its delicate steering and transmission systems frequently collapsed under the weight of its 45-ton hull. Hitler declared that they could not launch Citadel without massive numbers of these new tanks, and pushed the offensive back to wait for the factories to catch up. But this delay was a catastrophic strategic blunder. By waiting for the Panthers and Tigers to be built, Hitler bought the Soviet High Command the most precious asset in military history: time. While German factories painstakingly assembled a few hundred unreliable tanks, the entire Soviet industrial empire was running at absolute maximum capacity, churning out thousands of reliable, combat-proven T-34 tanks and heavy artillery pieces every single month. While Hitler waited for his wonder weapons, the Soviet military command under Marshal Georgy Zhukov and Marshal Alexander Vasilevsky did not waste a single second. Zhukov correctly predicted the exact German plan, identifying the northern and southern shoulders of the Kursk salient as the obvious targets for the German pincers. Instead of launching a preemptive offensive, Zhukov made a brilliant, highly calculated decision. He would deliberately let the Germans attack, but turn the Kursk salient into the most heavily fortified defensive fortress in human history. Over the course of 3 months, the Soviets mobilized more than 300,000 civilian laborers who worked alongside the Red Army to dig a mind-boggling 5,000 miles of trenches. They constructed 8 successive, deeply layered defensive belts packed with concrete pillboxes, hidden anti-tank strongpoints, and heavy artillery emplacements. More terrifyingly, the Soviets laid over 1 million anti-tank and anti-personnel landmines, creating a density of over 3,000 mines per mile of front line. When the Germans finally attacked in July, they did not strike an open flank. They crashed directly into a deeply prepared, steel-reinforced fortress that was specifically designed to absorb, grind down, and systematically destroy the offensive power of the Wehrmacht. In March 1943, the Eastern Front was momentarily quiet, breathing heavily after a winter of unprecedented slaughter. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein had just pulled off his famous backhand blow, launching a brilliant counter-offensive that recaptured Kharkov and stabilized the shattered German southern front. This spectacular victory left a massive bulging curve in the battle lines, a salient centered around the city of Kursk, extending nearly 100 miles westward into German-controlled territory. Inside this pocket lay over 1 million Soviet soldiers and a colossal portion of the Red Army's mobile equipment. To the German High Command, this was the ultimate opportunity. Manstein proposed a rapid, immediate offensive called Operation Citadel. The plan was classic Prussian military doctrine: a rapid double pincer attack from the north and south to clip the neck of the salient, encircle the Soviet forces, and seize back the strategic initiative for the summer of 1943. Manstein insisted that time was their greatest ally and enemy. He argued that if the Wehrmacht struck immediately in May, they would catch the Red Army completely unprepared before they could build deep defensive fortifications or recover from the winter battles. But as the planning documents landed on Adolf Hitler's desk, the dictator hesitated. He looked at the numbers, shook his head, and decided to delay the offensive until July. Decades later, historians still ask, what if Hitler had listened to his generals and launched Operation Citadel in May 1943? Let us now enter our alternate timeline. It is May the 10th, 1943. Adolf Hitler yields to the desperate pleas of Erich von Manstein and General Heinz Guderian. He abandons his delay for the Panther tanks, signing the operational order to launch Operation Citadel immediately. At dawn, a titanic artillery bombardment shatters the morning silence along the Kursk salient. The German pincers are unleashed. In the north, Colonel General Walter Model's 9th Army strikes downward, while in the south, Colonel General Hermann Hoth's 4th Panzer Army drives northward. In this May timeline, the visual landscape is completely different from the historical July battle. The Soviet defensive positions are only partially constructed, the concrete pillboxes are half-finished, the deep trench lines are fragmented, and the density of the minefields is barely a third of what it would become by July. German engineers easily breach the thin outer minefields, and Hoth's experienced panzer divisions, spearheaded by elite Waffen-SS units, make rapid, spectacular progress. Within 48 hours, German armoured spearheads have bypassed the disorganised Soviet frontline positions, driving deep into the rear of the Soviet Central and Voronezh fronts, hunting down command posts and throwing the Red Army into absolute tactical chaos. For the first 3 days of the May offensive, it appears that Manstein's gamble has succeeded. The German panzers are driving fast across the open steppe, cutting off Soviet communication lines and threatening to close the Great Pincer behind Kursk. But as the German generals celebrate their rapid breakthrough, they run headfirst into a terrifying structural reality. The Red Army of 1943 is not the disorganized, broken force of 1941. Behind the front lines, Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Stavka have held back a massive, highly secret strategic reserve, the Steppe Front, commanded by General Ivan Konev. This colossal reserve force consists of over 500,000 fresh, fully equipped soldiers, backed by thousands of tanks and heavy artillery pieces. As the exhausted, fuel-depleted German panzer divisions push deeper into the salient, General Konev unleashes his steel reserve. In a series of massive, coordinated counterblows, waves of fresh Soviet T-34 tanks crash directly into the exposed, overextended flanks of the advancing German columns. Even without their deep minefields, the sheer, overwhelming material depth of the Soviet military machine acts as an unbreakable shield, absorbing the German thrust and locking the Wehrmacht into a brutal, claustrophobic war of attrition in the open plains. The Battle of Kursk stands as the largest tank clash in human history, a turning point where the Wehrmacht's offensive power was permanently shattered. If you enjoyed this deep, realistic deconstruction of Eastern Front logistics and strategy, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next episode. What do you think? Would a May offensive have succeeded, or was the Red Army's depth simply too great? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next episode. What if Hitler didn't delay the Battle of Kursk? For decades, historians argued that delaying Operation Citadel from May to July 1943 was Germany's fatal mistake. By waiting for new Panther and Tiger tanks, Hitler let the Soviets turn the Kursk salient into the most heavily fortified zone in human history, packed with millions of landmines and 5,000 miles of trenches. But what if Germany struck in May? In our alternate May timeline, German tanks easily breach the unfinished Soviet minefields and drive deep into the rear. But the dream of victory is quickly crushed. Waiting behind the lines is Stalin's secret weapon, the Steppe Front, 500,000 fresh troops and thousands of T-34 tanks. The overstretched German panzers are hit by devastating flank attacks and ground down in a brutal battle of attrition. The truth is, by 1943, Germany had already lost the industrial math war. Subscribe for more real history.